Hey guys, hope you are all having a blast this Sunday. I got another deep dive into the housing market crisis happening today. Remember that tomorrow the stock market is closed, and as such, I moved the more GameStop and AMC centered video to tomorrow. Again, it's the weekend, and I want you guys to have fun, so I am going to keep it very light today. Wall Street as well as the infinite number of foreign investors damaging America are super serious about locking you out of affordable housing, and the new way they are doing it is absolutely disgusting. We have talked about how they are turning houses into full-on corporations, and how they are buying middle-class housing in particular that is close to jobs and school zones in order to defeat the middle class. They are treating the housing market as a full commodity, and based on the new research I spent countless hours diving into, things just got even worse. Who are we to blame for the housing crisis? This is the question I want you guys to answer in the comments section below once you finish watching the video. I have seen these type of housing videos and how they affect the economy is very popular in my channel. You guys seem to be really digging this side content on top of the GameStop and AMC stuff. I will continue to hone down on it, with the morning videos that will come out later this week talking about the impact that less ownership of housing will have in the overall economy, so stay tuned for that. Before we get started with today's segment, let me quickly disclose and state that I am not a financial analyst or advisor, and that all contents discussed in this video are provided as opinions. All efforts are placed to better understand the nature of the current market in anticipation of the greatest squeeze in financial history. Everything presented as evidence I collect and all opinions are based on research, experience and knowledge on the matter. Shout out to all my Patreons and one-time donors, who continue to support this channel. Now, let's get started. I want to be as direct with this video as possible. What are the biggest constraints keeping affordable housing for the middle class and the lower class out of reach? Well, as we discussed in previous videos, some of the issues come from big money bidding down 50% above asking price to sellers, essentially putting normal people out of the equation. We also talked about how they are bribing politicians to vote against the well-being of their constituents. And the other reason, which is what we are going to hone down today, is how developers are restricted and given bad deals if they start building new housing. A lot of money is invested in propaganda telling people that new housing will only lower the prices of their property, and that they will see all the gains they have made erase upon the finalization of new affordable housing. To a degree, this is correct. More supply of housing would temporarily lower the value of existing houses as there would be less scarcity. However, it is such a terrible take to make, because housing overall is extremely overpriced, and in a bubble. Under no normal circumstance should houses double or triple in prices within 5 years or less, as we have seen in so many cities across the globe, not just the United States. We know, psychologically speaking, we humans tend to be very short-sighted beings. We look at what happens immediately, and don't necessarily consider what will take place 10 years from now. This flaw is a weakness that makes us very vulnerable to the antics of Wall Street and all foreign investors who spend millions in political donations to make sure fears of losing value is exploited. However, with so many people moving to developing cities that offer competitive jobs with better salaries, it is obvious that more housing will be needed, and this is the zone where a great battle is being ensued. You might have heard the complaint by someone else that goes somewhere like this: developers in the city are only building luxury housing. They are not building anything normal people can afford, only building for the rich. This is very true, and it is something that is not only happening in the housing market, but also spreading to other areas of the economy such as on the car industry. We know there is a lot of money being put to slow down the growth of supply of houses, but we know that there is always going to be a new property made. They can only delay and put brakes on the inevitable so they can profit as much as possible in the meanwhile, much like they do with the squeeze with meme stocks. However, the problem is now becoming even more complex than ever before. Not only are we seeing less housing being made, but now the little housing that is being made is super expensive for the rich, completely leaving out the middle and lower class. Here are some of the important reasons you need to know why this is happening. New construction is made overly expensive to disincentive new supply of housing. We fall back on inflation, and the rising cost of materials and goods that has skyrocketed. We also have phenomenon like gentrification, where a previously blighted neighborhood becomes desirable, increasing the property values of the housing in the area. This becomes a very useful tactic for the rich, who come and buy the housing around, then allow for a couple super rich houses, or luxury homes, to be made, which raise the value of the housing around and they make tons of money off of it. This strategy comes at a very serious and dangerous risk for the few people who buy houses in such neighborhood. One is that on a bad economy, luxury houses tend to have the hardest time getting sold. As such, because the prices of such homes are exaggerated, owners can cut the price down 50% or even 50% to find a buyer. This, however, has a terrible consequence for normal housing in the neighborhoods with middle-class homes, because their value sinks. The risk of doing this is passed to the middle-class homeowners, and the rich carry little to no risk. As such, keeping prices high in an inflated economy helps them, because it allows them to fix undesirable neighborhoods and buy the best property. Then they allow luxury homes to be made, and upon a bad economic year, they pass on the losses to average folk. There is a lot of documentation written about this, but as is usual, our government does little to nothing about it. Another great limitation Wall Street gets their puppets in politics to promote is limiting the zones where housing can be built. Government officials designate where housing can and should be allowed to be developed. As such, there is scarcity of spaces to build. With this comes a hard decision for developers. You see, they too are after the biggest profit margins. We live in a capitalist society, and aim to get the best value for the buck. So, in a valuable lot of land where you are allowed to develop, and all that you can build is single-family houses, why not build a luxury single-family house? The problem isn't that there is no building being done, but rather that the building being done is being restricted so much that it incentivizes developers to have to make only luxury homes, which is amazing for all investors because, as we explained earlier, these provide a ton of value to all the houses they buy, and allows them to manage risk by passing it on to the middle class. Another reason is regulation. Now, don't get me wrong, nobody preaches for more regulation like I do, but the excessive nature of these is being made in purpose to decitizenize construction. Needless requirements that offer little to no benefit are indoctrinated by politicians bought out. I looked at some key states like California and Florida, and some of the requirements made in some cities are absolutely ridiculous. One that I saw a lot is parking spaces. Again, don't get me wrong. I live in Tampa and nothing upsets me more than having to drive in circles for 10 minutes looking for a parking spot. However, some of these regulations are done for places outside of hotspots in cities that don't really need them. You see, these regulations are not done with careful estimations of what is necessary and convenient for people. They are being done to halt and control the supply so that the rich have enough time to anticipate, overcome and buy out what they have to. Now, let me smooth everything out for you guys. Wall Street, venture capitalists and foreign investors from across the globe in China to our neighbors in Canada are all systematically ridding ourselves from the middle class. Big money is being invested in states and cities that are seeing a growth in population. By halting and slowly down the construction of housing, of the supply, below the levels that they should be given the rise in demand, investors seeking to eliminate the middle class are able to get an advantage in buying houses available, and then allowing the construction of some houses to be made in beneficial areas where they themselves once again derive the most value and profits. This happens in an indirect way by which developers have less city zones to construct, as such they need to make the most money for their buck, so they end up buying luxury homes, which then raises property values around. Wall Street and friends have already gotten these houses, so by the time the construction is done, their property value rises dramatically. They then use that as an excuse to increase rent prices. Also, by doing this, when a bad economic period comes, they simply drop the price of luxury homes in big chunks, since those property values are always in a bubble of themselves. This has a terrible outcome for the few homeowners in the area, who see their property values drop dramatically. A good tactic employed by investors is that when this happens, they come as the rescuing savior and offer homeowners the same price of housing as it was before it dipped, ever growing their power and monopoly. Housing is a commodity in modern times, and we need to wake up as to what is happening. Thank you for watching this video. I hope I was able to inspire some wrinkles, even if tiny, as to what is happening. As usual, what does this have to do with GameStop and AMC and other meme stocks? Easy. As we talked about, banks and other institutions have too much cash due to the reverse repo market and the ongoing of the Fed holding too much collateral like treasury bills. As such, having too much cash is a problem of itself because inflation is growing like crazy, eating up the value of their dollar by the day. As such, they need to quickly invest and park this money in an asset, and they saw and currently see the housing market as a great parking spot. As such, billions, which should be trillions very soon, will be thrown into housing. They have created a housing bubble, which they will be fine when it bursts because they know and anticipate it doing so. A lot of people think when the economy drops these people lose money. Wall Street stands to gain the most upon a housing market bubble burst, because all properties lose value. They have enough cash to survive and then to buy some extra houses when people are kicked out of their homes for losing their jobs. I continue to hold meme stocks because these could prove to be the endgame of all of this scheme, but it goes to show the stark reality of the world in which we live in. GameStop is a perfect hedge against bad economic conditions, as are all other meme stocks like AMC. Do with your money as you will, however. If you want to help this channel, I have provided links which will be in the description for donations and a Patreon if you would like to pledge a monthly donation of any kind. This support really goes a long way for me, guys. All money is spent on improving equipment and other parts of the channel so that we can continue to upgrade the quality of Simulate and Trade. It is my source of income as I am doing this full time now. It makes a huge impact and difference, so if you are able and willing, do consider it. I shall see you guys tomorrow on the next one. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day and to the moon.